Hello friends, today's topic is pyogenic meningitis. Okay, so now let us move on. So now let us talk about the introduction part of the pyogenic meningitis. So bacterial meningitis is an acute purulent infection within the subarachnoid space. Okay, so we know that meningitis is inflammation of the meninges, right? So that can be bacterial meningitis, it could be viral meningitis, it could be fungal meningitis. But when we are referring to the pyogenic meningitis, we actually refer to acute bacterial meningitis. So, bacterial meningitis is an acute purulent infection within the subarachnoid space. It may be associated with CNS inflammatory reactions that may result in decreased consciousness, seizures, increased ICP, and stroke. Okay, so this pyogenic meningitis could also be associated with a few CNS inflammatory conditions which may result further into decreased consciousness or seizures or increased ICP and stroke. Okay, so when we are referring to the subarachnoid space, you already know if this is assume it has a brain, so that is this could be a pia matter, arachnoid matter, and then comes the dura matter. Okay, the space below the arachnoid matter is called subarachnoid space. So clear with that? So we know if there is only inflammation in the meninges, we will call it as meningitis. Okay. So if there is involvement of meninges, subarachnoid space along with the brain parenchyma, we call it as meningoencephalitis. Okay. We know that encephalitis, when we speak about encephalitis alone, it is an inflammation of the brain parenchyma, right? So when we are talking all these through together, these three together, we call it as meningoencephalitis. Okay, so now let us move on to etiology. So etiology is classified according to the age, right? So here we have different etiological factors or the organisms according to the age. In adults, we find Streptococcus pneumoniae, Listeria meningitis, Listeria monocytogenes. Okay, so this Listeria monocytogenes we usually see in the patients who are above 50 years of age. Okay, so these three are the main important organisms that are causing pyogenic meningitis in the adults. So next we can see in less than 2 months of age. E. coli, Streptococcus agalactiae, Listeria monocytogenes are the important organisms that can cause pyogenic meningitis in less than 2 months of age. So if we check about the children in between 2 months to 2 years, so the organisms are Streptococcus agalactiae and E. coli. Okay, so these are the etiological agents according to the age. Now let us move on to an immunocompromised individual. In an immunocompromised individual, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Neisseria meningitis, Listeria monocytogenes, Haemophilus influenza B. So these are the organisms that will cause pyogenic meningitis in the immunocompromised individual. Okay, so these are the etiological agents which will cause pyogenic meningitis according to the age and also in the immunocompromised individual. So now let us move on to the risk factors which make these people susceptible to pyogenic meningitis with these organisms against the normal persons. Okay, so the risk factors are alcoholism, chronic illnesses like diabetic mellitus, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease. So some few neurological procedures, craniotomy and VP shunt, which will make them vulnerable towards these organisms, and also any systemic infections, which is on the large scale that could spread to brain. Okay, so meningitis by capsulated organisms like Neisseria meningitis is most common in splenectomy patients and with the patients with complement deficiency. Okay, so these are the risk factors. Now let us move on to the pathogenesis, which is an important thing which we have to learn in pyogenic meningitis. Okay, so there is an organism in the nasopharynx. Okay, so this organism in the nasopharynx will invade the subarachnoid space through some meningeal vessels. Okay, so invasion of the subarachnoid space by meningeal pathogen. Okay, it enters into the subarachnoid space. After entering into the subarachnoid space, the bacteria multiplies. Okay, and there is also the lysis of organisms as we take the antibiotics. Okay, so this lysis of organism will lead to release of the bacterial cell wall component. Okay, so the organism is undergoing lysis, which will release its components into the subarachnoid space. Okay, so these bacterial cell wall components will trigger an inflammation in the subarachnoid space. So this inflammation will further lead to production of the cytokines. Okay, this cytokine production will lead to starting point of the four different mechanisms, which will further increase the ICP, that means intracranial pressures, and may also lead to coma and death of the person. Okay, so this cytokine production will alter the blood brain barrier permeability. Okay, so this blood brain barrier is a thing which will selectively permeate uh, selectively permit any nutrients or the required things from the blood into the brain. Okay, and it will also cause the adherence of the leukocytes to cerebral capillary endothelial cells. As we know, during the inflammatory process, these leukocytes will adhere to endothelial cells, and into they get squeezed out from the blood vessels and enter into some other space. Okay, so there will be an alteration in the cerebral blood flow. Okay, this is a third mechanism. And the fourth mechanism is the production of excitatory amino acids, ROS, that means reactive oxygen species, and the reactive nitrogen species. Okay. Now let us dig deep into each of the mechanism. Okay. So this altered blood-brain barrier permeability and the adherence of the leukocytes to cerebral capillary endothelial cells together will lead to vasogenic edema, increased permeability of the blood vessels, which will cause further leakage of the plasma proteins into the CSF, and migration of the leukocytes into CSF, which will further go degranulate and release the toxic metabolites. Okay. So now let us look into them individually. So this vasogenic edema can lead to increase in the ICP, okay, intracranial pressure individually. Okay, so the second thing was that increased permeability of the blood vessels. This increased permeability will cause a leakage of the plasma proteins into the cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, so leakage of this plasma protein to CSF, that means the exudate formation in the subarachnoid space. So this exudate will cause obstruction to the outflow and resorption of the CSF. Okay, and there will also be the infiltrates that will surround the cerebral vasculature. Okay, so this exudate obstruction and infiltration in the cerebral vasculature will further cause two things. One is the cerebral ischemia. Okay, this cerebral ischemia will further lead into cytotoxic edema. Okay, this cytotoxic edema will always lead to increased intracranial pressure. Okay, so other thing that can occur due to this obstruction is that there will be a formation of obstructive and communicating hydrocephalus. Okay, and also interstitial edema. So this interstitial edema and obstructive communicating hydrocephalus will again lead into increased intracranial pressure. Okay, so now let us move on to the third thing, that is leukocytes would migrate into the CSF. Okay, due to this altered blood brain permeability and this adherence thing, these leukocytes will migrate into the CSF and they get degranulated. Okay, so due to this degranulation, there will be the release of the toxic metabolites. These toxic metabolites will always lead to cytotoxic edema. Again, the cytotoxic edema will increase the intracranial pressure. Okay, so this is about the first two mechanism due to cytokine production. Then we'll move on to the third mechanism, that is the alteration of the cerebral blood flow. When we mean alteration, it could be either decreased blood flow or increased blood flow. Okay, so this decreased blood flow will again lead to cerebral ischemia, and which will further lead to cytotoxic edema. Okay, so this cytotoxic edema will further lead to increase in the intracranial pressure. Okay, so this is about the decreased blood flow. Now let us move on to increased blood flow. So this increased blood flow will also lead to increased ICP. Okay, increased blood flow will also lead to increased intracranial pressure. Okay, this is about the third mechanism due to cytokine production. Now let us move on to the fourth mechanism due to cytokine production. Okay, this cytokine production will further cause the production of excitatory amino acid, reactive oxygen species, reactive nitrogen species. Okay, so these reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen species are nothing but free radicals. Okay, these free radicals will always cause a tissue injury. Okay, that is cell injury and the death. This cell injury and death will again lead to increase in the intracranial pressure and also death, coma, then followed by death. Okay, so this is about the pathogenesis in the nutshell. Okay, so there is an infection in the nasopharynx which will release subarachnoid space and which will cause a multiplication and lysis of the organisms, which will release the bacterial cell wall components, which will cause the inflammation in this subarachnoid space, which will further cause the cytokine production. Cytokine production will lead to four different mechanisms such as altered blood brain barrier permeability and adherence of these leukocytes to the cerebral capillary endothelial cells, and also the alteration in the cerebral blood flow and production of the excitatory amino acids and free radicals. Okay, so these four different mechanisms will individually lead to increase in the intracranial pressure and which will lead to coma. Okay, so this is about the introduction, etiology, risk factors, and also the pathogenesis of the pyogenic meningitis. Now let us move on to the clinical features, investigations, and treatment in another video. Okay, so like, share, and subscribe. Done, docs. Okay, thank you.